Welcome back to our workshop. Today I'm working on this chair that I've reassembled, but there's a problem on the foot over here. There's a chunk of wood missing out of this leg, and I need to figure out how to repair that. Stick with me, I'll show you how it's done.
As a furniture repair business, we're opening the doors to our workshop to show you the tools and techniques to repair furniture.
What I need to do is take that apart, repair it, and put it back together so I can get this chair in working order.
We give you tips to make your repair projects easier. Let's get into the workshop and start fixing furniture.
There are a couple different options on how to repair a foot like this. One of them could be putting epoxy putty on here and then shaping it. But the shaping exercise is going to be pretty difficult. Another option is to patch on a piece of wood. Again, it becomes a shaping problem of how do you shape that piece of wood after you attach it. So the third option, the one that I'm going to use, is I'm going to cut this foot off and I'm going to turn a new piece on the lathe and install it on this chair. That'll get this chair back in working order. I'll start by laying this down on some padding, and you can tell by looking under the chair it's really been made well. The joinery here is a standard mortise and tenon, so there's a tenon here that goes inside a pocket in the leg, and that's called a mortise. But the craftsman here took extra care to put a pin through it. And what I found in restoring chairs like this is this pinned mortise and tenon joint lasts much longer and keeps that joint together much better than anything else. If I turn this chair over, you can actually see the pins on this side of the chair, and the pins have carved details in so they are disguised. Now this chair is going to be gilded. It was originally, so that means covered in gold, and so these details just disappear once all that gesso and gold goes on there. What I need to do is decide where to cut off this foot, and it's going to be under the rings here, but let me give you a closer look so you can see the detail. Here you can see the profile, and it goes into a sharp point right here, and then comes out, and there's a flat area, and then comes back out again. What I want to do is replace the turning part with this curve right up into that pocket. So I'm going to cut it off here, preserving this detail here, and that will give me a good line to transition between the new turning and the existing leg. I like using Japanese saws because they have such thin blades on them, so you can get in here and make a delicate cut. But even with this blade here, I'm fearful that I might be damaging that fine detail. So what I'm going to use is my flush cut saw and get it just right in that groove there and work all the way around to make sure that I can preserve that detail and not damage it. This is Gyokujo flush cut saw, and it's got two different T settings on it. One is very fine, so I'm going to use the very fine and just gently work my way around this. And I'll put my pencil here so you can see just how fine that cut is. So I'll continue to work my way around just to make sure I'm staying exactly where I want to be. The next step is to drill a hole in the center of the leg here. When I turn the new piece, it will have a tenon on it, and that tenon will insert here and make a nice strong connection between the new foot and the existing leg. I'll turn this right side up here so we can work on the leg and find the center. Like anything in the workshop, you need the right tool for the job. This is called a center finder. This is used in turning, and what it allows you to do is find the center of something. So it's got a right angle here, a 45-degree angle here, and now I know the precise center of this. Now the drill bits you want to use for this are brad point bits. These have points on them, and what that does is prevents the bit from wandering. It's really important when drilling into end grain. I'll take my calipers and measure this, and we've got a depth of 7/8. So I can now mount the blank into the lathe, and one thing I've done in my workshop is I put these foam protectors on the live center here and the spur drive. These are sharp And in a general workshop, I've bumped into one of these before, and it's really painful. This just prevents that from happening. If you'd like to learn wood turning, I recommend joining the American Association of Woodturners. They've got clubs around the world where you can learn wood turning, and they've got great publications like Getting Started in Wood Turning. Here's an example from a recent newsletter, Spindle Turning for Furniture, a great article that's helped me understand some tips and tricks about how to lay out the parts so you can duplicate them, and how to work on those profiles to get them just right. I'm using birch here, and it's a hardwood, and when I work with hardwood, I like to cut an X in the end with my dovetail saw. That just makes it easier for the spur drive teeth to grab hold. When you're wood turning, you want to make sure you're wearing the right PPE. A face shield is absolutely mandatory. There's a lot of material flying off this lathe at high speed. You also want to wear hearing protection because over time, these machines can erode your hearing. And I recommend wearing a P100 respirator. The wood dust that comes off of this can permanently damage your lungs. So you want to make sure you're protecting your lungs so you can spend lots of time in the workshop. I also recommend wearing a turning smock. This allows the dust to fall off, and you can take this off when you go back into the house. And they also have pencil holders, which are handy when you're working out dimensions. Sharp wood turning tools are really important for making your product look better, and it's also better for safety. This is a Wolverine grinding jig. I use it so in seconds I can sharpen my tools. I've got a tool review on this product on my Home Improvement Woodworking channel. I'll leave a link in the video description below. So here we've got a good fit, and I'll show you a close-up in a minute. The next steps I need to do are to glue this on, and I've intentionally made this longer than the rest of the legs. I need to stand the chair up and trim it to the right length so the chair doesn't wobble. But before I do that, I want to let you know I've got a goal in 2022 to get to 100,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. I'm building a supportive community to teach people about furniture repairs because I think it's a dying craft. I'd like your help. If you can send our channel to someone that you think would be interested in furniture repairs, that'd be really helpful. Thanks. So you can see it's a nice tight fit here, but there's just a slight gap there. If I turn off the light here on the camera, you can see the profile a little bit better. So in order for me to deal with that, what I'm going to do is epoxy this leg on. Epoxy is the only glue that will hold when there's a gap like that. And I'll make the epoxy nice and thick, and that will just act as a little bit of a gap filler. It'll make it really strong and blend in the profile. Now I've got out my carving knife because before I put the glue on this, what I want to do is chamfer the corner here of this tenon. And what that's going to do is prevent the glue from being pushed to the bottom of the hole as much as possible. With there being a chamfer there, it allows the glue to reach up into the tenon. I've got a little bit of a gap between the bottom of the tenon and the bottom of the mortise, and that allows for excess glue to build up as well. If you don't leave that gap, you could end up trying to glue your piece together, and you could never get that fully seated because there's a pocket in there that's filled with glue. Okay, so now with that chamfer on, I'm ready for the glue. I use the West System epoxy. It's a two-part epoxy, and it's got these handy pumps that give you the exact measurement of what you need to make up a batch. I have learned that if I put an extra drop of hardener in here, I can get the epoxy working faster. The colloidal silica is a thickening agent, so I put that powder in here, mix it up, and it makes it a little bit thicker, and that's what I'm going to use around here because I want a little bit of a buildup so I can wipe it and just deal with that little slight void. So I'm going to mix this up, but you need to make sure you're wearing a respirator when you're working with epoxy. When it's curing, it off-gases, and also when you're sanding it, it has dust particles that you need to protect your lungs from. So I'm going to put this on and get to work. Now it's important to get this to full strength to allow it to cure. With this epoxy, it can take 1 to 4 days, and the way I judge how strong it is by breaking the epoxy on the stir stick. You can see here it's flexing before it breaks, so that means it needs more time to cure. It's now been 2 days since I put the epoxy on here, and you'll see how hard this is when I snap it. And the leftover epoxy, just push out of the container here. Because it's silicone, it does come out, and that's what's left over. Really rock hard. I'll set that aside, and the first thing I'm going to do is take off this excess part of the turning. So I'm just going to use my flush cut saw and take that off. Now what I need to do is stand this up on the bench. Your bench does need to be perfectly flat when you do this. And what that tells me is I've got a wobble in the chair. And that's because this is long, and I knew that to begin with. I did that on purpose. The way that I trim this to the right length is I get all 3 feet in contact with the bench, and that allows me to mark this for cutting it off. I just take a board, lay it on my bench, and bring it up close to the foot here. And then what I can do is mark the line. I want to go all the way around the foot like this, because it's not going to be a perfectly square cut as I go around and mark this. So I can only get so far around before my board starts to wobble. But it gives me enough of a line here that I can cut against. So the line represents the waist, so I want to cut right on that line to get exactly where I want to be. Now we can stand it up and we'll give it a test. Oh, still a little bit long. So I need to take a hair more off of that. Judging by this, might be another couple blade widths on that saw. I really like this Dozuki saw. This is made by Gokujo. And you can see here what a fine cut it can make. Here's the waist of my cut. I'll stand it up and give it another try. There we go. So the last thing I need to do is wear down this leg a little bit. The Dozuki saw gave a really clean line here, but that's not the finish that I want. On a close-up here you can see some of the wear marks, and on the back of this leg it's almost like the chair was pulled backwards. I'm going to mimic that detail on the new foot and we'll be good to go. To shape the foot, I'll just use a file and some sandpaper and mimic the details in the other one. Well, there you go. This chair is now back in working order. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and you've learned a few new things. And I'd like you to help us with our goal to get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2022. So please share this video with someone you think would enjoy learning about furniture repairs. Thanks for watching Fixing Furniture.